Okay, welcome everybody to this live Experts on Air session organized by the IDB on edX on the training project management techniques for development professionals. My name is Menno Valkenburg. I'm a project pilot assisting project teams pretty much around the Caribbean. I am currently in Kingston, Jamaica at the IDB country office. With me is also Cherise. Cherise is a analyst in the IDB. She's also a project management professional. Cherise will help me with this session. We have a lot of participants in the course. Right now, we're counting 13,785 registered participants. The median learner age is 31 years, and we have participants from 190 countries. Wow, that is amazing. The top 5 countries are the United States of America, number 2, India, Nigeria, and I'm really happy to see that Jamaica is still in the top 5, number 4, Jamaica, and number 5, Trinidad and Tobago. We are covering modules 6 to 9. In this session. However, you are free to answer any questions you have. This is the last session for this year that we have on the training, on the MOOC training. So feel free to put in your live questions. The Tri-Sider area where you can put your questions is open now. We have received a number of questions leading to this session, and let's dive right into it. But feel free to start putting in your live questions, and we take them after we take the initial questions that we have. So question number 1 came in from Tambu, and also Bainu added to it. It received 10 votes, and it's a question related to module 9, the project control tool, earned value management. The question in the previous session you left unanswered was reading question 5, and I recall this one. It came in, and unfortunately we weren't able to answer it, so we want to take a little bit of time to answer it now. So there was a question number 5 in the course on how to calculate the earned value in the following question. So the example we have here, or the situation we have, is you are at the end of the 2nd month of a 4-month project. And what you notice is that the value is 1,000. The actual cost to date is 300,000. And the project has encountered some difficulties. So the completion percentage is just about 40%. So you're in the 2nd month of your 4 months project. So you would normally expect that you're sort of halfway, maybe your percentage completion, 50%, but apparently due to some difficulties, you're just at 40%. Now the question is then, what is the project cost performance index, CPI? And I think that addition that you see below there was added. The formula to calculate CPI is earned value divided by actual cost. So let me start with a little bit of background on this earned value method. The earned value management method is actually a technique for measuring project performance that is used quite widely. So it originated, I think, from the defense industry in the United States, and it's a nice measure you can use in any type of project. And also, for example, the IDB is using that in their monitoring and control and measurement of projects. So there are 3 key elements in that: the planned value, the earned value, and the actual cost. And for answering this particular example, I would like to hand over to Cherise. So Cherise is now sitting next to me, and Cherise will give you the answer on this question. Cherise, over to you.
Thank you, Menno. When I approached this question, I looked at the information that the question had. It gave us some data we were able to calculate the necessary points of the formula and then calculate the CPI. So it said, in other words, what we intended to spend each month was $100,000. So if the project is 4 months and we intend to spend $100,000 per month, the budget then would therefore be $400,000 for the entire duration of the project. The question also gave us the actual cost, which was $300,000. So we went, based on the information it gave us, we calculated the budget. And from we use that budget in other parts of the formula. So the question went on to say, well, percentage complete is 40%, but it didn't tell us what the earned value is. And CPI, of course, is earned value over actual cost. So in order to get the earned value, we had to do some further calculation. And the formula for earned value is percentage complete times the budget. So we already worked out the budget. So the percentage complete was 40%. So 40% times 400,000 budget gives you 160,000. Therefore, we have all the components of the CPI formula, and we were able to calculate it. So CPI is equal to 160,000 over 300,000. In other words, 0.53.
Excellent. Thank you, Cherise. And what does this indicator now tells us? It's 0.5, but what does that mean? Are we doing good, or what does
So it influences the performance of the cost of the cost of your project. How are you spending? So it gives you an indication if you're ahead of budget or if you're behind budget. And usually the formula states that if the CPI is greater than 1, you are over budget. And if it is less than 1, you're under budget. So if you looked at the calculation for this particular project, the logic indicates that they would be behind budget. And so the CPI value also proves that particular logic of being 0.53.
Great. Great answer. Okay, let's go to the next question. Question number 2 that came in from Avik Khan. Received 5 votes. Thank you very much, Avik, for that question. The question reads, a lot of the data for the preparation of the risk assessment matrix come from historical information, if available. So I was wondering if Bayesian statistics, which factors in historical info and or one's own perception, can be applied to get a likelihood of an event failure to occur and make risk assessment based on that likelihood. Would be great to know. This is a very interesting question, Avik, and to be totally honest, I had to dig in my library and also look up on the internet to look exactly what Bayesian statistics was again, and I found some interesting information. It is actually used in project management, and specifically what I found is in large engineering projects. Risk management for large engineering projects. There are some interesting articles. If you Google, you'll find those where it is applied. And basically what it tells us is that during the risk qualitative analysis process, and maybe also the quantitative analysis process, but basically during the analysis process of your risks, typically what you would do there is you determine the risk level using the probability of occurrence of the risk and the impact should the risk arises. Now, in determining the probability, various methods are used, which may include formulation of a probability, Bayesian techniques and statistics, and you can include historical information and all that good things in there to basically help you to determine that probability level. Because what you'll find maybe is that sometimes the probability assessment or analysis is a bit subjective. Maybe one person finds this, another person finds that. And when you actually use historical information, then you can make that a little bit more objective. Maybe not 100%, but at least you can get a better feeling of that. So the probability factor is usually defined from empirical or historical information surrounding the event. So you absolutely can use that. So I think it was a very interesting question. Thank you for that. And let's go to question number 3. Question number 3 that came in actually module. Question 3 was a more general question. It was actually a very nice question. It came in from Asir Joel. And the question is, I have just been appointed as project manager by an organization. I don't know what to do to document the project management plan. I will appreciate your answer in a practical and professional manner. This is a great question, and I can maybe imagine that many of you who are taking this course may get an appointment as project manager, and you sort of want to know, okay, how do I start? What do I do? And if my sponsor asks me to document the project management plan, what is that? What do we do? So, Cherise, what are your thoughts on that? What can we advise here?
Well, this was one of the things that I struggled with in the program coming in, and one of the things that helped me was the Project Management Institute's principles that's applied to project management. The principles, there are 10 major principles of the project management area, or the project management faculty, and the 10 areas speak to outlining management plans for each of the different knowledge areas during the planning phase of the project. So upon reading further, I recognized that we will have 10 management plans after we've completed our management process if we do it properly. And so the project management plan would be chapters of these 10 different areas. So of course, the scope, time, and cost, some persons tend to consolidate that into one particular plan that's called an implementation plan. But the project management principles or best practices call for you to have 3 separate plans. And so the project management plan would constitute overall all these plans. What was specifically interesting to me as a young project manager was the component called integration management. I never understood integration management. And then having gone through and done the exam and so on, I realized that what the integration management is doing is looking at all the principles and seeing how they're all tied and how you would implement your project. And so the project plan would have an integration plan. How will you now be managing the management of your project? Pretty much. And we also, management has not yet got its own chapter, its own principle, but it's a part of the integration management. If you're going to be managing your project and you're going to be managing all these aspects of your project and changes occur, how would you be doing that? And the change management plan would have outlined that. And it is included in your overall project management plan. Once you do that and you have that document, it's actually a very good document that's updated almost every year once you go through your planning process of your project.
Excellent. Thank you, Cherise. That is a great, from your own experience, a great practical experience. Thank you. Let's go to question number 4. That came in from Tamara. And her question is, when changes, and actually Cherise was talking already a little bit about changes to any of the tracking monitoring tools is made, what is the best way to keep track of your changes and identify possible resources? I think dealing with changes and monitoring changes and keeping track of changes is a very critical aspect of also what a project manager would do, and you want to keep track of that. And Cherise, do you also want to give us here some insights you have on this?
Sure, Minoy. As a matter of fact, this is one of the challenges that we're now facing with some of our development projects in Jamaica. Usually at the end of a project, we are learning, sometimes after a 5-6 year project, we're learning that things had changed during the project, but the projects never documented these changes. And so the IDB has a best practice that we've adopted, and that is to formulate a change log. In other words, keeping a track of your changes that have occurred in your project every month. We've found that has been very, very useful. The projects now have been able to outline all the aspects of their projects that have changed. And once they've started to make a log of it, at the end when they're reporting, it's so very easy to report to us what those changes are. We've included an example of what the change log would look like. It would, of course, there are different types of changes, so you'd have to explain what the change is, the type of change that it is, what was your activity, and the reason. The reason is specifically important because at the end of the day, if you've changed your output and it has a major impact on the objective of your project, you want to have documented what that change was. And in this particular example, we also have the proof or the means of verification of that change. Was that change approved, especially by the funder, by the IDB? And if it was approved, what was that reference number? That information is so critical, especially at the end of a project when we're looking back at the project to see what has changed. But most importantly, another aspect of it is to have outlined a change approval process. This would, of course, be outlined in the change management plan that we mentioned before. If there is a change, it has to go through a particular process to be approved. It's not the project manager that's making the change on their own. It's usually a whole committee or the entire project or project directors, the sponsors, stakeholders, everybody's usually involved with the changes. So to properly document your change, you have to have an outline of how you will get that approval process completed, and of course documenting that in the change log as well.
Excellent answer, Cherise. Thank you. I could not have answered this better. Thank you. Now, the last question that came in, I think before we have two more that came in quite late, but this question number 5 came in on SPI. If we can elaborate a little bit further on SPI, the Schedule Performance Indicator. So let me take that question real quick, and then we go to some and see if we have already some live questions. And I want to take the opportunity now also to say, please post your live questions. If you are watching this live and you have questions, you can ask them now. Cherise and I will try to answer them as best as we can. But let's first take this SPI question. So please elaborate on that. So in Earned Value Management, SPI stands for the Schedule Performance Indicator. And the formula is Earned Value over Planned Value, EV over PV. It's an indicator to indicate how you're doing in terms of your schedule. So are you behind schedule, are you on schedule, or are you ahead of schedule? And basically the indicator, if it's below 0, smaller than 1, below 1, smaller than 1, that indicates it's not good. It means you're behind schedule. You're basically executing and delivering your results slower than you planned and slower than expected. That's when your SPI gets smaller than 1. An SPI of 1 means you're exactly on schedule. So you're exactly executing according to what you planned in your annual operating plan or your plan that you submitted. An SPI bigger than 1 means is good. Bigger than 1 is good, and it means your project is ahead of schedule. So you're actually delivering the results for the beneficiaries consider good. Okay, so I hope with that we've answered those questions. I'm now going to look at 2 questions that came in just before the live session that I'm now going to read from the Tricider link. One is a very interesting question. It's related to the communication module. And the question reads, various interest groups, like for example, political, religious, etc., may circulate misinformation about the project in an attempt to derail it to advance their own interests. Should a communication campaign for a development project begin even before the start of other project activities? And this is a question that came in by Jean. Very interesting question, very good question, and I think this can happen in sensitive projects. And in fact, I can't go into detail, but I've been involved in a couple of projects that are very sensitive in the community. And especially for those projects, you definitely want to think about your communication strategy, your communication campaign right from the start. That's probably the first activity that you start, is to think about how can we engage with these stakeholders. So you want to first identify who are these various interest groups that could circulate misinformation. You want to basically not run into trouble. So you identify who are these groups, you're going to engage with them even maybe before the project officially starts. You want to think about your communication strategy, your stakeholder strategy, and really focus on these activities right from the start. So I think depending on the project, depending on the context, depending on the risk level you expect in this area. And this is typically actually something you would also probably look at when you define the project. You also look at your risks. And if one of the risks you identify is actually these interest groups that may derail the project, then you really want to start with communicating and engaging those stakeholders right from the start. So I think it's a great question. I don't know, Cherise, do you have anything to add to that?
What you've said is so correct, especially for sensitive projects or projects that would have some sort of political interference. The stakeholder identification, which the PMI indicates as one of the very first things that should be done, should also feed into that communication campaign.
Absolutely.
And of course, that communication campaign can be amended throughout the project, throughout the year of the project, and so on.
Yeah.
But it is also very, very good to not only identify your stakeholders, but of course, assess your stakeholders. Who should be notified? Who should be advised of what's happening? Who should be the major players? And I think that would also help with strengthening that communication. They tend to hire specific people to do those particular activities, communication specialists, because the project managers admitted they do have a lot going on. They don't have time to do this. So best practice is usually to hire someone or hire a firm to get the campaign going.
Yep. Okay. Cool. Thank you. There was a second question, and that is it's actually a very nice question, and maybe why don't Cherise and why don't we both respond to that from our own perspective? So the question is, what steps should I take to launch my project management career? So let me share with you how I launched my project management career. And looking back now, I realized I launched it probably 22 years ago, although I wasn't aware that I was launching my project management career. 22 years ago, I was working as a team member. I have an IT background, so I was a team member in an IT project. And I really liked that project, and I liked the way. And then in a couple of years, I moved on to being the team leader of the team. And I started enjoying it more, and I learned more about project management. And I really started to like and develop a passion for project management. Then I moved into other roles as well, also non-project roles. But then I realized project management is really something I want to get into. So how can I further develop that career? And then I decided to go for a project management certification. And the first certification that I obtained was the PMP certification, the Project Management Professional. And this is about 8 years ago now. So that was actually, I was already in projects for quite a number of years. I had a lot of practical experience, and then I got into this certification. And then I realized there are also other fields of project management, like agile project management. So a couple of years later, I obtained an agile project management certification. I also realized that sustainability is becoming more and more important. There is a specific stream in project management that's called sustainable project management, and they also offer a certification. So I also explored that. And I think that's also one of the key things I really like about the project management field, is that there are so many options and so many ways how you can further develop your expertise and your career, basically, that it's never ending. And whatever I do, I'm now here in Jamaica facilitating project management workshops with various projects. Every day I learn from the people in the workshop. I learn from Cherise right now during this session. So it's just an area where you can constantly learn and develop, and it's just a great area. So Cherise, how did you kickstart your project management career? What's your story?
Well, as I've always told you, I remember as a youngster coming out into the working world for the first time, working with an environmental agency here in Jamaica, being a team member really of one of the projects that were funded by the IDBx. And Menno took us through one whole week of project management, a similar workshop to what you're doing now. And for some reason, Menno, that was when I decided that I wanted to learn more about project management. I appreciated how you had taken the concepts and made them real. And as a consequence of that, I went ahead and did my certification as well. I did the PMP certification, and that opened my eyes, opened a lot of opportunities. I ended up working here at the IDB and applying the techniques. Working here at the IDB has been such a great thing because we are able to apply the project management techniques almost every day. And what I realize is that, of course, you like as with any profession, you have different streams. So you have persons who are geared towards managing the underground projects. They're in the field. They're the ones seeing and developing projects, looking at the monitoring and the controlling aspects. I have also now been delving into risk management as my speciality within project management. So I decided, of all the principles, I really liked risk management, and I've been latching on more to that. So I am now developing myself as a risk manager. And within the PMI, they also offer certification in risk management.
Yep.
So whatever you decide to do, it's just an amazing field, and it's growing so much because here comes Agile, and a part of Agile is Scrum. And almost all the IT companies now are using Scrum as a project management methodology to execute and bring products to the market faster. That's now a new and growing and exciting field that almost everybody wants to get into. So I was recently certified as a Scrum Master. Every day offers a new opportunity. Every day there is something else. So it is a good area for us to launch our career.
Yep.
So there's another question,
Okay.
on risks. I don't know if you want to take that one. The risk, it was a part.
Oh yeah, it was linked. Yeah,
yes.
let's look at that one as well. So that is risk management, risk assessment, and management. Oh, by the way, if you are joining this session live and you want to put in your live questions, we can still take some live questions. So if you're logging in through the course to this session, I think below the YouTube live session, you will find a space where you can put your live questions. So feel free to put them there, and we can still pick them up. We still have some time to do that. But let's take this one in the meantime. Risk management module. The question is, risk assessment and management constitutes a vital part of any project manager. And I think that's absolutely true. And what Cherise was also just explaining, and when we were talking earlier, risk management, I think is more and more becoming a more important topic in managing successful projects. So the question then goes on, it would be good to know how big data and data science can play a part in project management. Well, that's a very interesting question. There are several developments, like Cherise was explaining, the Agile and Scrum developments, and obviously we now have more developments in big data. As I'm speaking about this, I'm also thinking artificial intelligence is another thing that you see coming up in as well. So I think big data can definitely be a very interesting factor in project management, and I think also especially in risk management. So if you are able to collect and track and gather data, and certain projects probably anyhow deal with a lot of data, that is definitely something you may want to dive into and use to also make your projects further successful. Other data sciences, I don't know, Cherise, do you have any experiences or any additions on big data, and is the IDB using that as far as you know, or?
Well, our EVP the other day actually mentioned that data science and data management is an area that is now evolving, and it's an area that there are a lot of gaps.
Wow.
And she actually encouraged persons to, if it is that you can go and be a data analyst. It's a good career move to do, because big data is now where everything is. Everything has gone digital. Our Caribbean group, we have a data scientist who this is his job. Every day he looks at the big data and he generates all these wonderful graphs and so on. But what we do with that information on the back end, we take these graphs and we take these trends and we actually look at the risks around project management and look at what are some of the things that are coming up that's going to impact the performance of the projects. So we've actually been using the data. I myself haven't been able to delve into data science as much as I'd like to, but because we have a specialist at dealing with that aspect, we're able to use the outputs of that data gathering in a beneficial way, because we use that data in our portfolio management, portfolio reviews, portfolio performance, individual project performance, so and be able to plan in advance for any unforeseen activities based on the trends that come out of data science. So it's a new area as well. I'm not quite sure where we're going in terms of project management and data sciences, but we do know that we do use data that's generated.
The questions that came in, but I think we've answered the earned value management questions, the risk management questions, being appointed as a project manager, the interest groups, project management career. Is there one coming in now?
Yes.
Okay, there is a live question coming in. Let's see if there it is. Okay, thank you for that question. And there's still time to ask more questions, so please keep up the questions coming. As an engineer, I have moved up to project management. As an engineer, I feel comfortable with having the technical knowledge and makes project management manageable. However, I moved to a new company and here working with a new technology of which I'm not skilled in. I do feel a certain gap and I do not know the engineer's competency yet. How do you deal with knowledge gap in technology and fields you are not familiar with? The project management principles remain the same, I guess, but with lacking the technical knowledge, I feel I cannot do some extra checks and balances with regards of technical. Real good question. Thank you very much for putting this question. I think a lot of us who enter in the project management field, you usually enter the project management field from a certain expertise. You have a certain expertise. You mentioned your expertise is in engineering, but in a specific area of engineering, and you move to another company which uses different technology. I actually experienced a very similar thing I studied computer science, and my first projects were dealing with SAP, a German software system. So I grew up as a, let's say, technical specialist in a certain area. And then later I moved into different positions. I moved what the project was about. So I really had to rely on my team members. And I actually had team members that were way more experienced than I was. So I in a way, I felt also a little bit uncomfortable. But I think if you approach it from a project manager, project execution processes, and those require certain skills and project management skills. And management, as you are saying, project management principles remain the same. Exactly. These principles, how you make a work breakdown structure, how you do your scope planning, your quality, management, that's basically all the same across the board. What's different is the content of the project and the objectives of the project and the deliverables. And now there, as a project manager or as an engineer or an engineering manager in a project, you don't necessarily have to know everything about all the details that is being developed in the project. However, what you want to recognize is, okay, which technical knowledge and which technical you have, and therefore everything yourself. So I hope that explains a little bit. I'm also interested to hear what if Charisse has any additions here.
Sure, Menno, you know, in the project management field, one of the things that make us so valuable, really generalist specialists.
Yep.
It's as
Very
if
good.
you know a little of everything, but you don't need to know a lot of any one thing.
Yep.
Once you have the project management principles and you understand the project management principles and how to apply them, you don't have to know every a quality management plan, which would then indicate perhaps establishing a technical working group. You don't have to have all the answers, but you know how to get the answers, which is what is usually important and usually what makes a good project manager. But as with anything else, reading, you don't have to know everything, like I said before, but at least understanding the different components and relying on the team. Because once you have a good team around you, it's usually a good way to, you know, to learn more from the team. So that would be what I would do as well.
Absolutely. Okay. Do we have any further questions? Let's just do a couple of checks. Give you a couple of minutes to see if for those. If there are more questions.
You can speak this on.
Okay. We can. Yeah. So. Okay. So. Okay. We're talking through here. Okay. So let's see if there are more questions coming in. I don't see them right now. Okay, I'm unmuted now. Okay, so let's do one final check to see if there are questions. And if not, I think we can start wrapping up this session. This session is also recorded, so you can always listen to it. You can always also get in touch with us. For example, you can find me on LinkedIn. If you want to connect on LinkedIn, we can do that. You can get in touch with IDBx for further questions. I hope you all enjoyed the course and you learned a lot. As we said, project management is something that is continuously evolving, and I don't think you're ever finished learning. So keep up your learning. Look forward to future courses that maybe also be offered on this platform, and try to learn as much as possible from each other, from doing your own projects, sharing also your experiences, attending conferences, and let's make all projects into successful projects. That's a goal that I have. I really want to help project teams and make all the projects that we work with successful. So I think with that, we are going to bring this session to an end. I'm going to do one more check to see if there is another live question, but I don't see them. So I think we are about to wrap up. Thank you very much for those of you who listened to the live session. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much, Cherise. It was great to be together here. We should do this more often. I'm sure next year there will be other opportunities and courses offered. And I look forward to the next opportunity. Okay, thank you also the IDB team in the background, Fernanda. And we can close the session and put the recording